Welcome to the SARE Ladies Podcast, the sister brand of Subtle Asian Real Estate, where our mission is to get more people that look like us participating in the real estate industry. We invite experts to not just talk about real estate, but also about our unique identity as Asian women and the cultural values that shape who we are as investors. I'm Anita Wong.
And I'm Tiffany Lee. We're both real estate agents and investors based in the Bay Area and New York City. Whether you're a seasoned real estate pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone here. So pour yourself a glass of wine or boba tea and join us as we celebrate the achievements and unleash the untapped potential of AAPI women in the real estate industry.
Welcome to the SARE Ladies Podcast.
Now let's get on with the show. But first, a word from one of our fabulous sponsors. Ryan Chaw is a pharmacist turned real estate investor who was able to quit his job at the age of 31 by consistently investing in real estate. Ryan was inspired to get into real estate investing by his grandpa, who bought a couple of properties in the San Francisco Bay Area back in the 50s. Over time, the rent there skyrocketed, and his grandpa was able to retire early. Not only that, but he was able to cover part of Ryan's college tuition and his brother's as well. This was a living example for Ryan of how real estate investing is one of the fastest ways to create generational wealth. Ryan bought his first deal in 2016, but because he didn't do due diligence, it actually cost him over $40,000 in repairs and improvements. However, he persevered, and 7 years later, he built up a multiple six-figure portfolio with 13 single-family houses on the side of his full-time job. In the process, Ryan has been featured on websites like BiggerPockets and Business Insider. And today, he helps others as a real estate investing coach. He uses a unique step-by-step real estate investment strategy, which has helped over 45 clients build their own rental portfolios to achieve financial freedom. Now on to the show.
Hey, Pod Squatters, welcome to another episode of the SARE Ladies Podcast. We're so excited to have Ryan Chaw today, who is going to be on our podcast to talk about something really exciting. We're going to talk about how to finally invest in California. and how we're going to do that is with student housing. And Ryan is we're excited because we're starting our SARECon series, and Ryan will be at SARECon. So if you haven't picked up your tickets, please do so now. You can pick it up in our show notes, but it's going to be huge. It's going to be wild. It's going to be super fun. So please go ahead and do that.
Hey, Ryan, have you decided what your talking subject is going to be at SARECon this year? While we're plugging you as a speaker, have you decided what your
Yeah, it's very simple. How to get started in student housing, because that's what I do. It will usually double or triple your rental income if you do it right.
Nice. And this is all across the board, not just in California, because that's what we said in your intro, but you've have since expanded to other states. So the other states, we're not gonna get into the nitty gritty of naming them all, but your strategy has consistently been student housing, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yep, right.
Fabulous. All right, so for our listeners, some more information about Ryan Chaw, who again will be speaking at SARECon this year about student housing. Ryan Chaw is a real estate investor with a multi-state rental portfolio. And as he said, if you do it right, he's currently pulling in $38,390 a month. That's $40,000. That's like a year's salary for some people. And is that all going to your pocket or with your partners as well? Is that
that's my cut? Yes.
Wow. That's amazing. And approximately how many properties are there in that number? I guess you can tell us the exact number of properties, but not where they are.
Yeah, exactly. Right now we're around 16, 17 properties, depending on if we close the last couple ones we bought.
That's 16, 17 doors, right?
No, there's more than that. Some of them are duplexes, quadruplexes.
Ooh, okay, very cool. So back to the intro. Ryan built his portfolio while holding down his full-time job as a pharmacist. And now he teaches others how to buy their first deal and then quickly scale to owning multiple properties so that they can be rock stars like him. Tell me, Ryan, because you're pulling this much money, why are you still a pharmacist?
Yeah, so I'm actually quitting in August 1st.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so you gotta have this is the dream. And Ryan, if you don't mind us asking, how old are you?
I'm 30. I'm 30 right now. I'm turning 31 in a couple weeks, actually.
Holy crap. And then what age did you start investing at?
23. That's when I graduated as a pharmacist and I just bought my first rental property in California.
And where did you get that down payment to do that first purchase?
Yeah, so I worked a lot of overtime.
Uh-huh.
I actually had 2 jobs. I would work, retail pharmacy as well as hospital pharmacy, and I would just work, like, 16-hour shifts, and after this 8-hour mark, you usually get, time and a half, and then after the 12-hour mark, you get 2 times pay. So I just did a lot of those 16-hour shifts for the first year, 2 years actually, and just tried to, save up as much capital as possible to get started because I knew real estate was really capital intensive. So that's what I did at the beginning. If I did it over again, I probably would have started partnering up around year 2 or 3 when I started feeling comfortable so that you can have the partner put up the capital for the down payment and then you do the management piece.
Yeah, and you've and that says a lot, right? Because a lot of people are so overwhelmed getting into it, but you're like, I started feeling comfortable around year 2, but you had so much of your own skin in the game, right? And I think, hindsight's always 2020, right? We're like, oh my gosh, I should have done it differently this way. But, I believe in the butterfly effect, right? That like, even the mistakes that you've made along the way led you to where you are for that hindsight. So, in
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, and I
So
lost over, I want to say, 30 or $40,000 on my first rental. So I definitely did make mistakes as well. And if you just improve every single deal you buy, if you just improve just a little bit, it's gonna eventually create exponential growth for you.
that's a huge learning, right? Because a lot of, especially I feel like Asian kids fall into this perfectionism trap where you're like, I have to do it right the first time. And then like, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but feel free to chime in here, guys. That like you'll beat yourself up if you don't know how to do everything perfectly. And I think that's what paralyzes people from even getting started because it's so much money and so much stake involved. But like, you have to be willing to, take some losses. It's all tuition. I always say that when you lose money trying to learn something new, that's just tuition. You're just paying tuition. And that's a saying in the poker world as well. When you lose, when you're the newbie, which gets us to your coaching. You're now newbie. You run Newbie Real Estate Investor, where you're a coach. So tell us more about that business model. Because you started off as the sole owner, then you moved over to partnering, and now you're a coach. So tell us more about how that trajectory happened.
Yeah, so I wanted to teach others a feasible way to get started because I saw how powerful real estate investing could be for me. Um, actually, so how I started is my grandpa invested in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he inspired me because he bought like 3 properties back in the 50s, and they were like dirt cheap back then, but obviously they went up over time. He was able to increase rents and retire early. And not only that, but also cover part of my college tuition and that of my brothers. So that's when I saw that real estate creates generational wealth. And so I knew that that was going to be my main wealth building vehicle when I got started. And so I just, I made a lot of mistakes. I bought 1 property a year and I just kept on that trajectory. And then eventually I partnered up so that I can buy multiple properties per year. And that's what brought me to where I'm now, making about, $38,390 per month. And then I realized, this is so powerful. I could achieve financial freedom, financial independence. I know that's kind of like a buzzword now, but it's true. It really can allow you to basically replace your W-2 income after the course of a couple years if you do it right and if you're creative about it. Now, if you buy traditional rentals and just rent it out to a whole family, it's going to be very hard to basically replace your income. But if you do something like, Airbnb, midterm rentals, or if you do student housing, where basically I rent by the room for $600 to $700 per month per bedroom, you could be cash flowing, let's say $2,000, $2,500 a month on each rental. So you could replace your W-2 relatively quickly. And the math on that is like, let's say you put in 6 bedrooms, right? And it's 600 per bedroom, that's 3,600. And if you're buying a property that's like $200,000, your mortgage is going to be like 1,300, 1,400 at today's rates. So 3,600 minus like 1,400, that's what, $2,200 per month.
That's so smart because it's almost like you said something that's really interesting that like I think goes over a lot of people's head. Like at face value, you're thinking of like renting rooms, you're thinking of renting the whole apartment to like one singular entity. But when you're doing student housing, you're parsing it up into rooms. And I guess like tell us more about what your logic looks like there. Like as far as the deal flow, where does the student income come from? Like, how do you know it's stable? Is it the school giving them the income, or is it like parent money? What's that mix look like? And why
Yeah,
do you
so
love this
what's great
strategy? Yeah.
about that's one of the best parts about student housing. Usually it's the parents paying the rent, so you're not really going to have to worry about unpaid rent because what parent is going to stop paying rent and risk their child getting evicted from where they're staying at school? So the rent always comes in. They also have other sources though. So people take out they'll get financial aid, scholarships. I even had somebody who paid for the whole year and he never even stayed at the property. I think he stayed one night, but he had to go back because his father was having health problems. But they said, "Oh, we're totally comfortable paying for the whole thing because we already got a grant for housing, and we're not going to use it if if we don't stay there. So we're going to pay you for the whole year." So that room was empty for the full year. It's crazy. There's also student loans, right? For room and board, you can take out student loans to pay for that. And it's great because we're saving students money. We're charging maybe like 600 versus on campus charges like 1200 or 1000 or 900 a month. And so it makes sense for a lot of students to do that to lower their student loans. And then the third way is obviously like the parent or if the child has a part-time job or something like this. But usually what I'll do is get bank statements from the parent, just to see that they have enough in their bank and that they're making some sort of income.
Okay. That's so many moving parts, right? But I can already see why you're filling in the leaks that show up in a lot of other types of like operations when managing different, residents, right? That's great. So what would you say year over, like the first year you started doing student housing, what was that little change that you made that exponentially helped you year after year, you would say? Like
Yeah,
where
so
did you slip up? Yeah.
the first year I learned how to basically do my due diligence because I didn't do my due diligence. I had a lot of issues. So the first one was the sewage line broke on me, and I got a call on the weekend from a tenant going like, "Hey, there's literal, sewage coming out of this kitchen sink. It's all over the kitchen floor, and it's also backing out into the showers, into the bathrooms." So it was really bad. I had to get sanitary crew out there on the weekend, which they charge extra for. And then yeah, I had to clean all that up and replace the sewage line. When we stuck the camera down the pipe, there was a break in the pipe, and so we had to replace the whole thing, which cost us about $9,000. And then I also had a lot of complaints about the cooling during the summer, and we actually didn't even have an AC. That wasn't even something I thought about, but being in California, you guys know that it gets pretty hot. So we basically had to install a new AC system. What we did was we installed mini splits because it was also very cold during winter, since this was a 100-year-old house. So that's the other thing I learned, not to buy 100-year-old houses. But uh, we installed this mini split system, which cost me about $15,000. And then there was also like pest issues, just little things like the basement got flooded and we had to do a sump pump. And so there's just like little things we could have caught on the home inspection report, or we could have ordered additional inspections, such as like a sewage lateral line inspection, which actually the home inspection normally does not include the sewage lateral line inspection. So ordering those additional due diligence pieces allowed me to basically find it before we close on the house so that the seller could go ahead and give us credit towards repairing that in the future.
That's great. And like you said, those first boo-boos, you realize how much risk you're opening yourself up to, right? So you mentioned earlier, maybe we didn't start recording it, but as we were talking, you said in hindsight, maybe you would have started partnering up again in year two, right? And again, bringing in partners limits the financial risk that you're taking on solo. So
Exactly.
when you did decide to scale, how did you find your partners and how did you decide who you wanted to partner up with? Because a lot of real estate partnerships last longer than marriages, some marriages sometimes.
Yeah,
So what was your decision
exactly.
making process and thinking there?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things when it comes to partnerships. First off, I always recommend you do the first deal yourself. That way you get hands-on experience. You have a lot to bring to the partnership because you've done it before. You just need to replicate your process. Plus, they can see that, hey, this is the numbers that you can expect from a property because this is what I actually did, right? So this is how much I bought my property for. This is how much I can rent it out for, or what I did rent it out for year one. So then they can decide, okay, do I want to go on board with this guy? Second thing is you really have to make sure you have a written agreement, preferably through an attorney. So I got a general attorney write a general like joint partnership agreement. Um, Basically, we're both general partners, and I'll do most of the management piece. He'll, put up the capital. Um, and then it's really important to have that though, because in case something happens, like let's say I passed away or he or she passed away, right? Then where does their share of the ownership go? So that's kind of like estate planning. Also, like if one partner is unhappy with the arrangement, is there like a buyout arrangement? And then what's the exit strategy? Are you guys going to hold it for life? You have to make sure you're aligned for that, right? If one person wants to flip properties and one person wants to hold them forever, then you're going to run into issues later on. So, what's the exit strategy here? Are we going to sell the place if it's not performing well? If things go bad, what happens? And that's probably the biggest question you need to ask. Like, if shit hits the fan, what's our plan for that?
And that's actually a great segue to the next question we want to ask you. If shit hits the fan, what happens? So let's talk about the market demand for student housing and how that industry can potentially change with like all these online courses that are now entering into the space. Do you think there's still going to be a need for students to live on site, or they could just continue living at home and get their degree that way? So what has been your research in that space, and what have you discussed with your partners, like how you would repivot? Like, what are those conversations happening behind the scenes?
Yeah, definitely COVID made a pretty big impact on colleges in general. Actually, my school did go online, but what I had to do was a lot more outreach when COVID started and said, "Hey, I know it's still online, but do you still want to, stay with your friends, be near campus? And then we can even give you a discount, like $100 off to stay at the rooms." And a lot of people were like, "Yeah, sure," because staying at home with their family, it was a very chaotic environment and they just couldn't even focus on their schoolwork. So they still wanted to be like with their friends, study together and all of that and have that dynamic. Also, have a little bit of the college life, go out to eat, hang out, go bowling or whatever, right? And I don't think that part will ever change. People will always still want to come together. If you went to college and, you think about your college days, those are probably some of the most precious memories. And you could not recreate those memories just through doing Zoom calls, right? So I do firmly believe that it will always be around, especially at the top colleges. So there are some colleges that kind of shifted to a more online model, but the colleges that I invest there, usually they have to have experiential programs. So I usually invest near programs that have like MDs, PharmDs, dental degrees, like health professional degrees, engineering degrees, or MBA, whatever. A lot of those need actually hands-on experience. If you think about like a doctor, right, or physician, they have to have some practice on the patient. They have to practice the physical examination. They have to, do the cadavers and all that. It's very hard to simulate that online, right? Especially if you become a surgeon down the line. So I invest in the schools that have that, like you absolutely need to have those experiential programs, labs, internships, etc. So I don't see that going away for my colleges anytime soon. But again, choose a top college that has those types of grad programs. That way you do protect yourself from something like that.
I think what's so cool about your strategy is it's so informed by your almost previous life as a pharmacist, because that's like an angle that you wouldn't see in the education sphere if you weren't a pharmacist or you weren't surrounding yourselves with other doctors and nurse, like anyone in that medical space, that you
Yeah.
need that hands-on practical experience. And I think like to the untrained eye who might not be in that sphere, like that isn't that's like a qualitative observation that is beyond the numbers that people don't see. And like you said, if you're creative, you'll find out where you can really grind out that edge and where your strategy really works. So I think that's super cool that, that your history, like I said, butterfly effect, right? Your pharmacy background feeds into your real estate strategy. Real estate isn't just like rental numbers and what's going on paper. It's about people.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one thing I would say is like, if you are trying to get into real estate and you want to work W-2, I highly recommend getting into some sort of service-based industry, whether it being a healthcare provider or I don't know, retail, whatever. Just because real estate is definitely a service-based industry, right? The more you can keep your tenants happy and provide them with amenities and take care of them when something breaks down or they have conflict with each other, whatever, the better you can deal with that, the more successful you'll be as a real estate investor. So yes, definitely, my job as a pharmacist has directly translated into me being a better housing provider for people.
So all right, so this going back into your pharmacy life, when you were well, you still kind of are we allowed to say that you're thinking about quitting soon, or we're gonna have to cut that out?
No, you can totally say that. No, I think everyone knows that.
You're like, I'm safe. I'm so like, what am I gonna do? But yeah, so when you were a pharmacist, were you working like at the drugstores or at the hospitals? Like which? Both. Okay.
Yeah, at the beginning, I worked at the drugstore for at least a year. But I was also working hospital part-time as well. And then I eventually segued into a full-time hospital position. I was a infectious disease pharmacist, and now I'm a pediatric pharmacist.
Very cool. Which one do you like more? This isn't even a real estate question. It's just me.
Yeah, honestly, they both have their benefits. If you work retail, though, make sure you're not at a busy store. I think that's the most important thing, because otherwise you're just pushing scripts and you don't even have enough time to make sure it's like quality work sometimes, because the company could be like pushing you to just get an X number of scripts done, which is not good. Obviously, we're trying to make sure it's safe for the patient, right? So we do have to take our time for the QAs.
Oh my gosh, that's like doing due diligence.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go. You had that muscle the whole time.
Right.
Yeah. What is worse? Do you have a house full of students that you have to manage, or is it worse to be on during the pandemic on a Friday at a pharmacy? And it's like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock when everyone is bum rushing the counter.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could definitely. I mean, there's always extremes on both cases, right? Like you could get a call, yeah, exactly, like for a sewage line leak or something. That could be pretty dramatic. For real estate, though, you can hire out, right? So you could always hire out, find a good property manager, or find a really good handyman or contractor who can kind of get in there and take care of the issue right away. So yeah, overall, my passion is in real estate, although I did enjoy my years as a pharmacist.
What made you decide to be a pharmacist? Was it parental pressure, or just like that was the responsible thing to do?
Well, it was a responsible thing to do at the time. Yeah. I got into an accelerated program for pharmacy. So I was like, yeah, I might as well take it. I did want to be in some sort of service-based industry, because even back then, I do enjoy helping people and making lives better. So yeah.
Aww.
I mean, so that sounds so altruistic, but it's not like it's like I wanted to do something that helps the community, right? Or that was kind of my goal.
Is that why you've decided to expand into coaching now as well? Is that your way of kind of giving back?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I do believe anyone could do this, and I know there's a lot of people who just kind of need guidance with it, because it's very scary and intimidating getting into real estate at first, because you don't know what you don't know, and that could hurt you. And so I didn't really have much of a mentor. I mean, I had my real estate agent who taught me some things, but I didn't have as much of a mentor. And I felt that if I got started and I had somebody who showed me exactly what they did, it would help me skip years of trial and error. So that's why I'm became a coach and mentoring others right now.
Yeah, real estate can feel a bit like the wild west, because everyone has their own style, and that's why sometimes it gets a bad rap, because there is, like you said, there is no standardized quality control way to do it. You kind of just learn tactically as you go, and you meet different people, learn their different styles, and you just get better. Hey, we're going to take a little break, but in the meantime, here's a shameless plug for one of our amazing sponsors. Learn how to invest in commercial real estate the right way. No fluff, just the truth. Retired software engineer turned real estate syndicator Tony Lin is the managing partner of Link Multifamily, where he helps folks invest passively while also teaching aspiring operators the ins and outs of the commercial multifamily space. Here's what one potential investor had to say about Tony's commercial real estate mentorship. Last year, I shadowed Tony on his latest acquisition, a 111-unit Class A property in Dallas, where he showed us exactly how he intended to execute his business plan. It was a great educational experience. Tony Lin and the Link Multifamily team love to share their recipe for success and empower you to do the same. To get in touch with Tony and his team, visit linkmultifamily.com. That's Link, L-I-N-K, Multi, M-U-L-T-I, Family, F-A-M-I-L-Y.com. Now on to the show.
Exactly.
That's great. So tell us more about the coaching, your newbie real estate investing business model. Now, or do you partner with your students? Like, what's that business model look like for you now as a way to?
Right. So I actually did partner with one of my past students. I've taught over 45 students across, I want to say 15 or 18 different states. Most of them will have a rental. I want to say at least 85% have a rental, and it's a student rental. Either a student rental or young, like working professionals, like healthcare workers. And basically, we explore what market they're in, whatever state they're in. It could be California, for example. We want to make sure they're making at least $1,000 per month in cash flow on the first deal. Out of state, I usually push for at least $1,500 per month. But that being said, your first deal does not have to necessarily be a home run, right? You can just, I always recommend having positive cash flow. Don't buy something that'll negative cash flow. But if it does cash flow, I mean, I would just say get started, because real estate is a time game. It's don't wait and then buy now, then wait, right? I'm sure you guys heard that phrase before, but it really is powerful. My first property I bought for $262,000, and then I sold it for $437,000. So just from sitting on it, it went up, I don't know, I think that's like $170,000. And then if it was a course of like 6 years or so. So that's like, I don't know, $20,000 to $30,000 every single year just by sitting on the property. So you want to get started as soon as possible, definitely. But rent by the room, honestly, is probably the best way to get started.
That's great. That's great advice. Anita, did you want to jump in? And
I was going to say how rent by the room. So any caveats or tips about multiple leases all going at the same time? That's what you do? How many leases do you have like in hand? Sometimes you're like, it's a get dizzy.
So I would say my largest house has 8 leases on it. That one's huge though. It's like 35 or 3,600 square foot. Actually, potentially more. But yes, I do multiple leases, but you do have to check with your city, because there's local ordinances that might put restrictions on number of unrelated tenants. And so you might have to do like a change of use permit that you change the use to a rooming house, or you might get a variance, or maybe it is allowed in your city. Actually, most California cities, since I'm in California, do allow unrelated tenants and don't have any restrictions on that. So you do want to make sure you look at that and talk with a qualified real estate attorney before proceeding in whatever city you're proceeding in.
Do you have like any sort of software programs that you use to kind of keep an eye on everything?
Yeah, so I do have the Ring system for security. So like if I see some like a huge group of tenants coming in, I'll ask, are you guys having a party or something like that? But that actually hasn't been the case. I've only had that once in my whole career. So I could keep a track through that. I do have a bookkeeper now who does track like utilities and splits it among the tenants. He also makes sure if the tenant's paid or not. So yes, we do have systems for that. A lot of it's in Excel, to be honest, but I did hire out for somebody to do that type of work.
Yeah. Awesome. So, I want to circle back to the whole California thing, because that's what I want to talk about. And I want to know about what is the unique value for student investing in ways that we're countering sort of the biggest concerns for California investors. Obviously, they're very tenant friendly, blah, blah, blah. How is student housing sort of that, I would say maybe one of the only investment vehicles maybe that's doing well in California these days?
Yeah, exactly. So because we double or triple your rental income, typically, you can make a lot of properties that normally wouldn't work for positive cash flow. You can make them work. So I have a student in San Jose who's making $5,500 per month. Actually, he's investing near San Jose State. Um, his his rental income, he had 8 bedrooms. He put in 2 extra bedrooms to make it 8 bedrooms, and each is renting for 1,200, so that's $9,600 in rental income. And then the mortgage was around 4,000 because he locked in a very good rate when the pandemic hit. And so his cash flow is 5,500 per month. But it's not just San Jose. So we have students in San Jose, Sacramento, Stockton, Riverside, UC Santa Barbara, Loma Linda. I'm trying to remember. Oh, I have somebody in either Modesto or Manteca. Um, I think those are the ones that we've invested in so far. But yeah, all over the California, and we're still able to make cash flow. So for example, this house that I'm living in now, it's a house hack. I rent out the other 4 bedrooms for about $850 per bedroom. And then I have a couple on the last one, so they pay a little bit extra. So overall, it's 3650 in rental income on this house, and my mortgage, because I'm living in it and I locked in a low rate by living in it, is 2,300 a month. So I'm living in the master bedroom for free, and I'm making an additional $1,200, $1,300 on top of that, right, per month. So it's definitely a strategy that can be done in California. If I moved out of this master bedroom and rented the master out for about 900, I would be making 2,000 in cash flow on this Sacramento house.
Yeah, I love it. And for me, I live in Berkeley, so as many people may know, that it's like has one of the strictest rental ordinances in the country, and so
Right.
I love renting out to UC Berkeley because they leave. It's like
Yeah,
they
that's the biggest thing
almost
too. Yeah, no squatters, right? No
yeah,
squatters,
and it's just like, well,
no
I mean, yeah,
evictions.
people love living here, but I mean, if you're like in your 20s, you're making that money to, like you're either going straight to San Francisco or somewhere else to be making those big bucks, and not probably not staying around the UC Berkeley area. So I love it. They're less fussy. Hey, they're less fussy, and they're
Right.
also they tend to leave, which is also what it's helpful by themselves. Yes, yeah, it's nice.
Oh, I have a question. What's your guys' advertising and marketing strategy to capture those students? Do you market through the schools, flyers? What do you do to get feeder? What's your feeder strategy?
Yeah, actually, I call it the prime method because it's used to find prime, high quality tenants. So you want to place your P stands for placement of ads. You want to place your ads where your target market hangs out. So for me, it could be like Facebook groups, roomies.com, Craigslist, Uloop, etc. And what I have is like I have this really nice form that they can fill out. So I basically it's a link that they can click on their phone, and they just fill that out to show their interest, like their email, uh, phone number. And then what I do is I just follow up through text message because a lot of people, especially nowadays, the Gen Z generation, they like their phones, right? They like texting, they like filling out, clicking buttons and everything. So it's very easy for them to get basically apply for the student housing, and it makes it a lot easier for them. And I'm all about convenience and all of that. So that's the P. The R stands for reviewing their social media, review of social media. So if I can, I will review their Facebook, see if they, have smoking, drugs, alcohol, and any of their pictures, or maybe like if they're like partying all the time, so I try to avoid that type. I stands for identifying the type of tenant. So are they somebody who seems to be really needy, very entitled? Are they asking for a lot of favors and things from me before they even get started? M stands for measuring responsiveness. So the more responsive they are, the more responsible they tend to be. If they're getting back to me really quickly, that means they're probably, a professional student. And then E stands for ensuring proof of income, which means that you basically check the parents' bank statements and credit score, or just like a screenshot the credit score to make sure that they can afford the rent.
I love that. Do you see a difference between like undergrad and like grad students? Like, I'm just thinking about responsiveness. I was just like, I was a mess when I was an undergrad, and I was in grad. I was like showing up
Right.
calls on time and classes on time. Do you?
Yeah, there
Ryan wouldn't rent to
definitely
you
is a
anyway.
difference. I would say, yeah, there is a difference in grad versus undergrad. Just because somebody who went through undergrad and now they're pursuing a grad degree, they're usually more serious about their degree, I would say, because they're going to the next level. They're getting the doctorate or they're getting their MBA or whatever, and they really want to pass their classes. Plus, the program is usually more rigorous for the grad programs. So a lot of times they're really focused on their studies. And if they do, even if you pair them with like somebody who's like a sophomore or whatever, and they just want to party, they kind of will make sure the culture of the house is, hey, no parties, all of that, because I have midterms or I have finals to study for, so we can't have house parties or anything like that. So I find if you just have one or two really good, professional students or grad students, they basically make the whole house a study house rather than the party
Yeah.
house, right?
I think for us, it's kind of funny because I say like undergrad, like, so like, like around campus, there's like a ring, there's like an undergraduate ring. And I think
Mhm.
that's like a half a mile to a mile radius, like walking distance to school. And then
Yeah.
grad is like a wider ring because people don't want to deal with all the partiers. They want to actually study. So
That's
they
funny.
move
Yeah.
a little bit further and away from the frat rows and stuff. So I call it the
Right.
grad ring. Is that the case for some of your other places, or is it just like in one?
So I do try to be as close to campus as possible. So my buying criteria is basically be within like a 5-minute walking distance, or if it's commuter school, within a 5-minute driving distance to campus, because those are the best locations for students. We're all about convenience, easy. Um, it's easier to access the school from the house. And then we try to buy like larger houses as well, so that we can get in that like sixth bedroom or maybe even the seventh bedroom, so that we can make the cash flow. So yeah, we try to be as close as possible. I wouldn't say grad students necessarily want to stay further away. They're okay staying closer to the campus. It's just obviously we want to be in a good neighborhood as well. So if it's a neighborhood that has a lot of crime, right, that's going to turn away a lot of students. So as long as you're in a good neighborhood and you're close by to school, it is going to be a prime location for undergrads and graduate students, generally speaking.
Great. Maybe that it's a great segue to my next question, because I kind of want to like, I want to get like see like what's the best formula, like if you had to sort of pick.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like private or public institution,
Mhm.
commuter or non-commuter school, like a rising city or a already established city.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking like a Stanford private university, Palo Alto, like prices already up the wazoo, or you're like, like somewhere else where you're kind of like where you have more cheaper real estate,
Mhm.
but then maybe it's like like a small, like really prestigious program that only like, a
Like
small handful of
like a
people.
medical or pharma program, must have
Right.
medical pharma program.
Yeah, like, the residencies that are in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those are
Okay.
all great questions. Honestly, you can technically do this in pretty much most cities and most colleges. For example, like San Jose, I was saying, even though houses are $1 million there, one of my students was able to buy $1 million house and cash flow $5,500 per month. So yes, you can do it in more expensive cities. But with that being said, I usually do target lower median housing cities, and that's just because it's lower risk. Your mortgage is only going to be like $1,200 to $1,500 per month if you're buying like $200,000 houses, $200,000 to $300,000 houses. And so it really helps you get started in a very low risk manner. Less capital into the property, probably more cash flow. Usually I try to right now my buy box for out of state is basically a 200,000 or 200 to $250,000 house, or I should say 200 to $300,000 house, but we can put in at least 6 bedrooms because it's a large enough square footage. I also target top universities. So I'll look at the top universities in that state. And you can even ask ChatGPT now. You can say, list of 100 top universities in the state of California. And it will literally give you a list of the universities and what city that they're in. And then you can go down the list and look at each different university, see if it's affordable for you, see if the houses in the area are large enough to add additional bedrooms. And then go from there. Basically, that's how I got started. The reason why I do choose top universities is, it's not just because they have like a SAT score cutoff. By the way, I think they're getting rid of that SAT score and all that. But most of these students are really serious about their studies, right? Maybe they had like straight A's in high school, pretty high GPA, well-rounded, all of that. And so those are just going to be the more top quality students versus somebody who comes in and they're really not sure what they're doing at the university. They rather just party and just have fun rather than get a degree and use that to build a career, right?
So no football colleges. I'm just kidding.
Just
I came from one, and there's I was like cops were called almost on a weekly basis. It must have been a nightmare for property owners around there. Okay. Well, okay, so we're going to end off with a rapid fire question for Ryan. So what is the worst real estate advice someone has given you?
To try to time the market. I buy every single year. I've always bought every single year. I don't care if it's a depression, if everything's going to the moon, right? I'll buy every single year.
Nice. Okay, without naming names, do you have a scary tenant story to share with us?
Yeah, definitely. So I had somebody who did marijuana when marijuana was still illegal in California. And I got a call from the cops saying, hey, we caught your tenant doing marijuana. Please, help address this. And, we had to get the parents involved and everything too. It was a big mess. He was also a very party type tenant. He actually invited over like 80 guys over something for a party. And then we had to say, oh, no, you can't do that, right? So it's really important you screen your tenants, right? And you kind of figure out what kind of tenant they are just by interacting with them. A lot of like your communication with them, if they're like, yo, what's up? I'm looking for a place, dude, or whatever. Versus somebody who's saying like, dear Mr. Chaw, I saw this great house nearby and I'm looking forward to discussing and talking, somebody who's more professional, right? That's kind of the type of tenant I really lean toward.
So essentially, after this guy, you formed the prime method.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. The prime method was formed after that. Exactly. The genesis of the prime method, right?
Okay. What's your top 3 amenities for students?
Yeah, so I provide them with quite a bit actually, but you definitely need a mattress, a study desk for students, a study chair. I have some extra like drawers and maybe a standing closet if the room doesn't have a closet already. Let's see what else. A nightstand as well. Yeah, those
so
are
you furnish all of your student your
do,
house.
yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's a huge plus for my property because I only have to spend money once and then it's good for like a decade or 2 decades, right?
Do you use the IKEA furniture for them because they're they're like,
no, I don't.
Right.
No.
Okay.
I use Amazon, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Lowe's.
Anti IKEA. Okay. We're not sponsored by any of those brands, by the way. Thanks for the plug. Now we can get we'll get the plug.
Okay. What is your operational must-have for student housing management?
Operational must-have. I would say a local, like you need boots on the ground, like period, right? So make sure you do your best to vet a really good general contractor. A lot of times I'll ask for references and then I'll ask those references questions like, did the contractor finish the work on time? That the time that they said they would finish it, did they meet that? Did they finish on budget? Or did they ask for more later on? And so those types of questions to vet the contractor, you'll find a really good rock star contractor. And once you have the rock star contractor, anything that breaks out down at the house, it's, they will get on it. Right. So you don't have to take those calls at midnight for a broken toilet or whatever. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So who else is killing it in the student housing game right now that you admire?
Yeah. So generally I don't like to compare because I just want to do better than I did before. I actually don't see too many people in the student housing space. Actually, but I would say Toch is doing pretty good. Toch Nguyen. Uh, you might want to take a look at him because he has a lot of energy. He's very passionate about it, and I think that's something you need, right? If you're not passionate about real estate, then it's probably not a good idea to get into it because the first time a tenant calls you with a problem, you're going to go like, "Oh shoot, I have to deal with this," right? Versus your attitude is more like, I can create a system for somebody to deal with it. Even though I'm doing this work up front, it's teaching me, I'm learning through this,
Mhm.
right? And so that I can eventually provide the best service for the tenants, right? Because you really want to focus on providing the best service, not about, your own personal ego and what crap you have to deal with, right?
I think that truly does make or break a real good investor. I mean, anyone. It's like any failure that is actually turning something into a lesson is something that you can do for the future. A system that you can build for the future is really makes or break a good investor or human being in general.
Or a
So
business partner.
yes,
Exactly. Yeah.
okay, so top 2 books you need to read right now.
If you haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm sure a lot of people talk about that, but that's probably one of the best books that really get you into real estate. I would say Who Not How is a good one too, because if you want to, it's more of an advanced one for later. Like if you're trying to build, get in great people. Obviously, for every investment, I'll have a really good agent. I'll have a really good set of lenders, and I'll have a really good general contractor at the minimum. And then, of course, later on, a really good property manager if you need it.
Nice. Okay. What is one habit you have in your daily routine that fundamentally changed who you are as an investor?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. I would say, to be honest, just being obsessed with the process. I go on Zillow every day, like literally every day, and I look at houses, and if I find something that really meets my buy box, or it's like super close to the university and it's really cheap, I hop on it the same day. I actually make an offer usually the same day or the day after. So I'm constantly on Zillow. Like every morning, it's like the first thing I check, right? So
Zillow for
yeah,
breakfast. Yeah, got it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is
Okay.
awesome. Okay, well that wraps it up for our rapid fire questions. You've been amazing, Ryan. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down to chat student housing strategy with Anita and myself. I have to say you are our first student like we've never gotten this granular with strategy
Yeah,
talks
right.
before, and this is I think we should do more of this. Ryan, you have inspired us to refine our system, and you basically you inspired you are the new prime, but not for bad reasons, but for good reasons, because we had such a great experience chatting with
That's
you
funny.
today. I think
Yeah,
it's fun to get creative and talk about all these different ways that we can utilize real estate to for a niche market need that like most people don't understand the ins and outs of stuff. So it was fun to
yeah,
walk down
definitely.
memory lane. It's been a while since I think all of us were in college. Not gonna date ourselves. So it was kind of fun to like just get back into that like campus mindset. Be like, if I was a college student, what would I want? And so that was
Exactly.
really fun, really cool. I guess it keeps you young, Ryan. Like I couldn't even guess. We couldn't even guess how old you were. We had to ask. It's like, oh my
Oh, we're all Asian, so.
god. So if our listeners want to reach you, Ryan, how can they best do that?
Yeah, you can reach out to me at www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide. Just put in your email there, and then I respond to all emails. If you have any questions about this, again, that's www.newbierealestateinvesting.com/guide, and newbie is spelled NEWBIE.
And for those of you guys that are watching us on video, we have we have Ryan's website on the little ticker on the bottom. So there you go. That's the best way to see Ryan. And Ryan, we can't wait to see you at SARECon this year. So everything, if you
Thank
loved
you.
all the student housing talk today, this is just a little teaser. We're just scratching the surface for what's going to happen at SARECon. And mingle with Ryan in person. That's the plus side of these awesome conventions that we have every year. So thank you so much, Ryan. We appreciate you spending time with us, and have a great weekend. Bye.
Yeah, and thanks again for inviting me on the podcast. It was an honor, guys.
Yeah, it's good to have you, Ryan.
Attention, all trailblazing women. Are you ready to level up your leadership game and make a lasting impact? Since the recording of our podcast with the fabulous Michelle Ngo here on SARE Ladies, we have officially released the date of our Women's Leadership Summit, happening July 27th to the 28th this year in Costa Mesa, California, in conjunction with SARECon.
Join us for an empowering event packed with inspiring speakers and interactive workshops designed to supercharge your soft skills and prepare you for your upcoming real estate events. You'll connect with like-minded women from around the country, sharing stories, experiences, and strategies to shatter the bamboo ceiling and change the world together.
We've got an incredible lineup of speakers, including trailblazers like Christine Chow of Texas Urban Realty, Gina Shin of Fractional and Shin Equity Partners, Jenny Locke of Zen Coast Homes, and many more amazing women who are going to share their personal journeys and challenges to teach you the techniques they learned to be successful in the world of real estate. Plus, you'll have the opportunity to join smaller breakout sessions where you can learn practical skills and strategies to level up your own life and career. So, are you ready to ignite your inner fire and unleash your full potential? The Women's Leadership Summit 2023 is the event for you. To get tickets, click on our show notes linking to the Eventbrite. Hurry up, tickets sell out fast.
See you there, ladies.
Thank you for tuning in to the SARE Ladies podcast hosted by Anita Wong and Tiffany Lee. Special thanks to Subtle Asian Real Estate, LLC, our parent company.
If you enjoyed our show, please leave us a review or follow SARE Ladies on Spotify and Instagram at Subtle Real Estate. You can also click on our show notes to subscribe to our newsletters to stay on top of our news and upcoming events. Until next time, Pod Squatters.